right, guys. Dani Williamson, DaniWilliamson.com. And it is Sunday night, so that means it's Sunday night service. And this is my friend Nikki Scott right here from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And she's on the national board. I am on the local board. And we are going to be talking all things mental health tonight.
Correct.
Suicide prevention.
Prevention, intervention, and postvention.
That's exactly right. Statistics and resources. And it's a heavy, heavy topic tonight. All right. And as soon as you guys get logged on, I want you hitting your heart buttons, hitting your like buttons, hitting all the buttons, and let us know you're here. And also share this, because you guys are going to want to take notes tonight. And you will notice when this ends, there are literally, Nikki typed in a whole page of resources for you all.
Correct.
Okay, so we are going to get started tonight. And I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And there we go, right there. Here's the thing. If you're in crisis, Nikki, you go ahead and start off.
If you're in crisis, you can call 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255, or you can text home, start, help, whatever you want to type in, to 741-741. And if it's an emergency right now, you need to call 911.
Absolutely. And so I will share on here a little bit later and I've shared it multiple times on social media. I have it in my phone, and I have it under Suicide Crisis Prevention Line. And do we have that posted? You did put it up there. Did you?
I did not.
Okay, so we will get that up there. But put it in your phone so that you have it for anyone who needs it, including yourself. Yes. So if you're in crisis right this second, you can call 1-800-273-TALK, or you can text home, start, help, anything. I didn't know that. Yes. 741-741. Mm-hmm. Okay, simple as that. But both of us, like I said, when we first got on here, we're both on the board for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Nikki nominated me last year, and I came on, and Nikki rolled off the local board and has gone to the national board. Correct. And to be on the board, you need to have firsthand experience.
You need
How's that work?
Well,
I'm not sure.
You need to be 2 years away from your loss or attempt. You need to usually be a survivor of suicide or a survivor of an attempt. It's not always the case. Sometimes you're just a mental health worker, not just a mental health, but a mental health worker, a therapist, a counselor. We need all of you on the boards.
That's right. And so we're going to share our stories and why we are actually on the board for AFSP.
Correct.
Nikki's going to start off with her story while I'm getting, she didn't know that, but Nikki's going to start while I'm getting things set up on Facebook.
I lost my mother, Viola, to suicide in 1999, December 1999. It's been over 20 years, and time heals, but time doesn't let you forget what you went through. And the way I healed was to go to support groups and then become a facilitator for support groups. And then I joined the board and went to walks. I moved to Nashville almost 11 years ago. The first 5 years, I registered for the Out of the Darkness walk in Nashville, and for 5 years, I did not go. I always had an excuse to not go, or made up an excuse not to go. And then I finally went, and then I became a board member, and I started our Healing Conversations peer-to-peer support group. And then I became a facilitator for a support group, which I still do every Monday night. And then I rolled off of the board after 3.5 years and went on to National Loss and Healing Council.
And the Loss and Healing Council is a phenomenal council, and it's a big job.
It is.
That's heavy work. This is heavy work no matter what. But she has won 2 national awards through the local chapter here in Nashville for her programs that she has facilitated. And for those of you that don't know, I met Nikki 10 years ago when I started work at Cool Springs Family Medicine. Actually, 10 or 11 years ago, right. When I met when I worked at Cool Springs Family Medicine, she was my nurse. She was my second nurse. Kingsley was the first nurse, and then Nikki was the second nurse. And so that's how we met. And through the years, of course, we've still stayed in touch. And then she got me involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention because suicide prevention is near and dear to my heart. my family has a long line of dying by suicide and suicide attempts. And my grandfather, my mom's mother, died by suicide before I was born, and then I was born on the exact same day that he died by suicide a few years later. So I have always been a constant reminder. I've always felt, to my mother. My mother has struggled as well, and I've had many friends who have also died by suicide, and it just seems like every year someone else. And then I struggled with my own lived experience. I've never attempted suicide, but I had a year or so a long time ago when my children were little, where I knew exactly what I was going to do, how I was going to do that. And we won't talk about all that tonight, but I wrote all about it in the book. It's in the very first chapter of the book that's coming out, because it's a huge piece of who I am. And I remember the day, what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. And then I remember the very day saying, nope, not today, Satan. Not today. And my kids were at the bottom of the bed. And the only reason, which is totally fine, because I'm still here, that I didn't do it was because I was not going to leave those children with my ex-husband. Isn't that something? And that's what kept me alive. And I am grateful that it did.
Whatever it
And
takes.
that's exactly right. And so I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to think about it. And I know what it's like to have family members who've struggled. And, just so you know, we're here. We are here. We hear you. We see you. And Nikki, more so than me, is an unbelievable resource. And a friend of mine was in trouble a couple years ago, 2 years ago, and I called Nikki, and my friend came here, and I saw right then, that's when I really got involved, because I saw Nikki go into action in a side that I had never seen of her right here at my kitchen table, counseling. So we're going to share some statistics with you all.
Yes, U.S. statistics. In 2020, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. It's the second leading cause of death of ages 10 to 34, 10 years old. Fourth leading cause of death, ages 35 to 54. Veterans are 1 times higher than non-veterans. We lose 20 veterans a day to suicide.
That we know of.
Firearms are accounted for about more than 50% of all deaths. 132 Americans die each day. Men die 3.6 times more than women. Women attempt 1.4 times more.
Yes.
54% of Americans have been affected by suicide. Just know that at some point in your life, you are going to be affected by suicide. Whether you know someone, you've lost someone, or you've had to call the police for somebody. There are 1 million Americans who survive an attempt. 800,000 die by suicide worldwide, estimated by the World Health Organization. That works out to someone dying every 40 seconds.
Every 40 seconds.
And then I just want to, something important is language about suicide and around suicide. We need to stop using the words committed. We need to stop using the word failed and successful around suicide. You can say died by suicide, killed themselves, ended their life, suicide attempt. And you need to get onto your local news chapters to correct that, because I hear it all the time and I read it all the time.
The news channels.
News channels.
Yes.
Journalists.
Yes.
And you can go to afsp.org and there are journalist guidelines on how to
Really?
report suicide.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Well, I learned, because I didn't know that we don't say committed suicide. We don't say that anymore. And I don't know the reasons that changed, but...
Because committed implies a crime.
Oh.
And suicide's not a crime.
No.
It's
no.
Illness.
Yes. Died by suicide, killed themselves, ended their life, or suicide attempt. Okay, and that's really big, people. So remember that. Commit that to memory. Write that down, whatever it is you need to do. Those are United States statistics,
right.
But the Tennessee statistics, each day in Tennessee, an average of 3 people die by suicide. That's every 8 hours, someone dies by suicide.
Correct.
Right? As of 2017, suicide is the second leading cause of death for young people ages 10 to 19 in Tennessee.
10. How many of you
10.
have a 10-year-old right now? And how many of you can imagine your child attempting or contemplating suicide at 10 years old? Think about that for a minute. It's not pretty.
I can't imagine. We lose one person between the ages of 10 and 24 every 4 days in Tennessee, and every day, yes, one day, I'm not sure what I was saying there. Suicide attempts remain elevated among people in midlife, especially white males. Tennesseans aged 45 to 64 are more than 3 times more likely to die by suicide than those aged 10 to 19. Typically, that's the age group that attracts most of the attention when it comes to suicide prevention, like 10 to 19, right? But it's actually the 45 to 64-year-olds who are 3 times more likely, to die. It is well documented that suicide during depressions and recessions increase, right? It was observed that the United States suicide rate increased 4 times faster between 2008 and 2010 than it did the 8 years prior to that. So you can imagine what's going on right now.
Yeah, the second pandemic or the concurrent pandemic is
a
suicide.
mental health pandemic.
And you need to think about your healthcare providers that are dealing with people with pandemics and the PTSD and their survivor's guilt that they're going to go through after this is over.
It's unbelievable. It's the 9th leading cause of death in Tennessee. It's the 2nd leading for ages 25 to 34. It's the 3rd leading in ages 10 to 24. Suicide rates for the white non-Hispanics in Tennessee are generally at least 3 times higher than other ethnic groups. I didn't know that. And according to the United States Census Bureau, non-Hispanic whites made up 79% of Tennessee's population in 2017. However, they accounted for 91% of all reported suicide deaths in the state that year. Suicide rates, we already talked about that, for males, even in Tennessee, for males are at least 3 to 4 times higher than for females in Tennessee, which is a trend replicated within each racial group: Hispanics, African Americans, whites. Generally speaking, females typically use a less violent means to attempt suicide, such as a drug overdose and suffocation. These methods cause less catastrophic, more survivable injuries than firearms or jumping, which are typically the means that a male uses. Correct? As of 2017, suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death for young adults. More than cancer and heart disease combined.
Can I just say,
yes,
in 2014, Williamson County, the richest,
which
most
is where we live,
wealthiest county, highly educated, was 2nd in the state of Tennessee for teen suicide.
Williamson
2nd
County.
in the state. The first was the least, Shelby County. No resources, low income.
That was the very next thing. Suicide is more common in some parts of Tennessee than others. Rural areas often lack mental health resources such as clinical, clinicians, therapists, mental health sources, things like that, hospitals, psychiatric units, training, right? Even when those resources exist, people may be reluctant in a rural area to use them. And I know that. I grew up in rural Western Kentucky, Gilbertsville, Kentucky, and it was not something you talked about. Not at all. So that being said, the age-adjusted suicide rate in 2017 was 14 per 100,000 individuals, and like you said, every 40 seconds. So this is probably 60 minutes long. So that's what, 60? Over 60 people by the time we finish this have died by suicide worldwide.
Right. I suspect the statistics will go up after this year.
You bet. I know.
What else you got? Okay. So there is a new shortcut hotline like 911. It's been passed. It's going to be 988.
Yes.
They are working on funding and logistics for that phone number, so that should be available soon. Someone has a question. How many contemplate it? How would we could never know.
No, but
no one
people
tells
don't
you.
Talk about that.
Just assume it's a high number. Just assume that. Why? Why do people die by suicide? Why do people contemplate suicide because there are several stressors. There's health issues, there's trauma. I will tell you that someone who has lost someone to suicide, their rate increases drastically. Especially, have seen it firsthand with child loss. That drastically goes up for the parents who feel guilt, shame for the child that they took care of for many years.
Wow, I didn't know that, but that makes perfect sense.
So the important thing to remember here, and to keep this in your head, write it down. Assume you're the only one who will reach out to someone.
Yes.
And you need to know the signs. They are talking about killing themselves. They're hopeless. They don't have a reason to live. They're a burden to others. They feel trapped. They're in unbearable pain. Behaviors might change, alcohol or drug use, which they never used to do. Searching online for ways to commit the act. Withdrawing from socializing, isolating, aggression, fatigue, depression, anxiety, loss of interest, irritability, humiliation, agitation, rage, anything out of sorts for that person.
And we are right now living in the last 3 months in a world that is out of sorts. Out of sorts.
Right.
And like I said earlier, the phone calls, what the news is showing, the phone calls to suicide prevention hotlines are up 800%. Suicide prevention phone calls are up, but domestic violence phone calls are down. Because those people are living with their abuser in a room, in a house, and not being able to get out.
Right.
It's heartbreaking.
So, things to avoid when you talk to somebody. Don't debate the value of life. Don't try to fix it for them. Don't minimize their feelings. Oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to pass. It's just a moment in time. It won't always be like this. That minimizes what they're feeling because it's extremely big at that moment.
I think for some people that's probably the hardest part because we want to fix things. We're fixers. Right. Even if you're not in the mental health field or the health field at all, we are fixers as a rule.
Right.
And so you have to be so careful how you say things. Right? Oh, it's hard. I know. I've been there before. I've been there. No, you haven't been there before because this is a whole new thing for this person right here. Yeah, that's the hardest thing. And I'm somebody who has a lot of words, and the hardest thing is to listen.
Right. And if you're going to ask the hard questions, you need to be able to listen to the hard answers.
Yes.
So, if you're not ready to do that, then you need to find someone to do that. There used to be a time when every time this patient would come into Cool Springs Family Medicine, where I work, I would get called into a room the minute that someone said the word.
Yes.
And I can't say I was the best. I didn't know more than anybody else, but for some reason I was the safety person to call.
Even before you were on AFSP, do you remember the first time we did a suicide contract at the office?
Sure do.
I walked out
on my desktop.
I walked out and said, Nikki, we need a suicide contract right now because I'm not scared to ask the hard questions. I asked the questions. I just didn't in the past know what to do when they said something. Right. And so I knew though that and anyway, Nikki found a suicide contract and that's what the patient signs and things like this that they're not going to harm themselves. But I'll never forget that day. Right. Ever forget that day. Yep. But something that that I wanted to talk about is, I want you to talk about talk in private. I mean, really right. Take the person seriously. Correct. When my friend called me, she had lost her son, right? Mm-hmm. She had lost her son. She called me from Lexington, Kentucky. And I flat out asked her because I knew that she was struggling. And I said, are you thinking about harming yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? And she said yes on the phone. And this was at 6 something in the morning.
It was very
early. And I was literally sitting right here on this couch. And I said, you need to drive right now to blah, 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 blah in Franklin, Tennessee, my house. You need to come here immediately. And she made a U-turn and right. She came straight here. And I was texting Nikki on the phone because this was prior to me being on the board. And I said, what's the phone number for the suicide crisis line? Because I didn't have it in my phone at that time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was like a conjointed effort here and we got it done. But I asked her, yes, because, and she may not be here today. Had I not asked, had Nikki not stepped in. So don't be scared. And you talk in private to these people. You don't
Right.
do it in a group of
And
people.
don't beat around the bush. Just ask the
Flat
question.
out.
Just ask, are you thinking of killing yourself? And be
And
ready
when
for
she
the
said
answer.
yes, I jumped in. I knew who to call.
So how to have a real conversation with someone. Just let people know that you're willing to talk about hard topics and mental health and intense emotional conversations. You're okay with that. Trust your gut. If
Yes.
it feels wrong, if it feels unsafe, if it feels like it's an emergency, trust it. Normalize mental health. It's okay. We have all been there. We've had hard days. We
Yes.
have gone to the edge and we've all come back. We normalize it. Be vulnerable with them. You know, you don't have to take over the story, but you can let them know that you have been in those shoes if you have.
Yes.
Timing doesn't have to be perfect. There's no perfect time to ask somebody that, but if it's in the moment, you do it. You don't wait for a better time. What if they hesitate? Let them know that you want to listen, that you want to be there. Tell them that in your own words. Maybe they're comfortable talking to someone else. Maybe they want to talk to Dani instead of me. That's fine, as long as they're talking to someone.
That's right.
And how to end the conversation. You reiterate that you're glad that they came to you, and if they need resources, you're going to help them. If they need to go see a therapist and they're scared
right.
to, you can go with them and
You
say,
bet.
I'll meet you for coffee after. It's okay
You
to do
bet.
those things.
You bet.
What
I mean,
else?
you have to be able to ask the hard questions, and you have to I have a real heart and a real passion for teenagers, and I've always loved them. I've loved them from the first time I started practicing. I mean, I didn't care for mine so much when they were growing up. I had a hard time, and we struggled in my household, but I'm glad we got through that. But we got through some hard mental health times as well during that. But as parents, I am begging you to pay attention to the signs. Pay attention
Right.
to the symptoms. Teenagers are brooding anyway. They brood. They're
Hormonal.
They're hormonal, and they stay in their rooms.
Right.
They do, because both of mine did, and I remember doing
Mine
it as
do.
well. But you need to pay attention. And Nikki and I've talked about this. When Ella was growing up, and now she's grown and she's doing great and all. But you've got to pay attention. Do not put your head in the sand. With your teenagers' mental health. And do they want to talk to you? Absolutely not. But get them help with someone that they will talk to. Am I right?
Right. There was a time about a year ago, every other day I'd pop my head into my son's room and be like, are you thinking of killing yourself? Are
Yes.
you okay? Are you sad? Are you upset? Are you depressed? And he'd be like, Mother, leave me alone. But we were going through a hard time and we were struggling, so I had to check in. And so I did. And he's still around and he's okay.
That's right.
But I'm not
So is
scared.
Ella.
And Ella is too. She's amazing.
Man, we've had
We
some.
love you, Ella.
We love you, Ella.
are.
You're watching tonight. We love you, and I won't share your story. That's for you to share. But we have many of us have had hard times with our teenagers, and we've not wanted to ask that. But I'm just begging all of you to stay in touch with your teens, because again, remember, 10 to 19 is a growing rate for dying by suicide.
Right.
Training.
What if they refuse to go?
Yes.
How are you you can say, I know it's hard, I know it's scary, and we can do this another time, but you have to promise that we're gonna do it.
Right.
If they're in immediate danger, you stay with them. You remove lethal means. What are lethal means? Guns, pills, knives, whatever it is that they've told you their plan is. You help them remove it, you get it away. You can call your police department and you can tell them, I need this firearm taken away, and they'll take it, and they won't ask questions. You call the suicide prevention line, 800-273-8255. You text talk or home, or start to 741-741. And those both are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you encourage them to seek professional help through a doctor or therapist. Your primary care doctor any
Or
of the
nurse
or nurse practitioner are going to be the first persons that they tell.
You bet. You bet. And when I went to the national conference this year in Colorado, I learned, that, and I don't remember the statistics, and I can't remember. I should have written that down. Emergency department. Many people who die from suicide, and it's a high percent, and I don't remember the percent, were in the emergency department or the emergency room within the last month.
Right.
And we missed it in the emergency room.
Right.
And we need additional training in the emergency room to ask these questions.
Correct. There is
And
training.
they were also in their primary care provider's office as
Right.
well. I mean, that the statistics are there, and Kat's watching tonight. She may know the statistics.
And I don't know if it's still around, Kat, but Safe Side was the training for primary care, and I believe they were partnering with ERs to get training.
Yes.
What else? We have training, and we can do all of our training virtually. We can do Talk Save Lives, which is an introduction to suicide prevention and how to talk to people. More Than Sad, which is intended for educators and school personnel, including parents and students.
So any of you that are teachers, that are parents, that are students, I mean, you can reach out to afsp.org. Would that be correct?
Yeah. Or, and find our Tennessee chapter.
The Tennessee chapter.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's all right. Enhancing mental health during COVID-19. So this is a new program that we just started because of coronavirus. It's a 30-minute presentation that provides an overview of supportive virtual programs and focuses on mental health, including self-care, helpful resources, and generally guiding audiences and participants. And they can be ages 15 and up for that program.
So every one of these programs, anyone that's watching this can go to, they would go to AFSP or they would go to the local chapter, to our
Well,
local
if you go to afsp.org and type in Tennessee under search, you're going to find our page.
And then anyone can train, anyone can do a Talk Saves Lives, or do we need to be a part of that?
No, any person can do that. Any company can do that.
Yes. So
Yes.
those of you that work for corporations, or not even a corporation, say you work for somebody like me who has 6 employees or so,
Right.
you can reach out and you can get trained and you can learn. There are resources for your office, for your business, for your corporation. I mean, we live in a town who has huge corporations here. Nissan, Dave Ramsey. I mean, we've got a gazillion HCA organizations here, and if they're not being trained, if you all work at these places and you need training, there are ways to get trained there and to get resources.
Right. Let's see. So, Natchez Trace Bridge. Let's talk about that. To date, there have been 38 suicides off of that bridge, and several were teenagers. There is the Natchez Trace.
Did you all hear that? I mean, are you listening to this? To date, June the 7th, 2020, we've had 38 people die by suicide off of that bridge.
Correct. Young
38.
people.
And the majority are young people.
Mm-hmm.
And I know yes. Yes. And you don't hear about it all the time.
No, you don't.
And that's right here in Williamson County.
Yeah, that beautiful bridge.
The beautiful bridge, if you don't know, you can, yes.
Find the Natchez Trace Bridge Barrier Coalition on Facebook.
Yes.
Run by Trish Morello. They've begun designing a permanent solution for the bridge, and it's going to start construction in 2023. They would like to get some sort of temporary barrier in place before then. Not only is this a problem, but there are witnesses and people who drive by and see this happen.
Yes.
And that is PTSD and mental health issues for them on top of it. So the ripple effect of suicide is huge. Just know that. For every one suicide, the ripple effect is, I can't even remember the number. I want to say it was 250 people for one person.
Isn't that something? But this bridge right here is, I mean, I'm telling you, we all need to get involved in this. She has a great Facebook page. She is a worker, and she's motivated.
Right.
And she has reason to be motivated to do that. And, I know the Golden Gate Bridge where you're from, are there barriers there? And there are statistics on this, and I wish we would have, we should have done that because there are statistics on the bridges and things that have these barriers.
Correct.
And
I don't think they're fully in place yet. I think they're still being built.
and at the Golden Gate?
Golden Gate's having netting put in.
Okay.
Yeah. What else?
You
We have
told
some
me
walks.
once that
What?
people who survive a jump, and you told me a percent, I can't remember, they regret that. They
That's
voice this.
100%.
100% of the people who survive
Wish they hadn't done it.
wish they hadn't done it the
And
second
that's
they
true
took the
for
step.
almost any suicide survivor.
Isn't that something? And if you've never been to the the Out of Darkness walk here in Nashville, you hear these stories, survivor stories, family members of members who they've lost members to suicide, but also survivor stories, people who have attempted and survived, and it is unbelievable to hear their stories.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard and the degrees of intensity for every one of those stories. Yeah. They're big.
And for any of you that want to get involved, go to afsp.org, type in Tennessee chapter. There are all kinds of positions for you all to get involved, to
Right.
volunteer. Field advocates, right?
Mhm. You can be a walk volunteer for campus or community. You could be a healing conversation volunteer, which is a peer-to-peer based one-on-one conversation with someone who has lost someone to suicide. You can certainly help with social media anytime you'd like. Share our posts, reshare our posts, come to our walks, come to our events. We do, because it's Nashville, we do a lot. We used to do a lot of music events that were fundraising. There are many ways for you in different avenues, whether you want to be in public policy to volunteering with new volunteers. You want to be on the board. These
Yes.
are all things that you can do.
Advocacy. There's a day at the Capitol
Mm-hmm.
every year,
Mm-hmm.
and in Washington D.C. as
Right.
well. And we
Right.
have a great advocacy chair. So there are lots of ways to get involved. And I can tell you, I've only been on the board for a year, but I can tell you straight up, looking at you guys through this camera, there is a huge need for more volunteers and more people to get involved and do the dirty work.
Right.
And the hard work, because it's heavy. There's nothing fun about this conversation. There is nothing fun about it.
No.
There's nothing fun about it, but there are amazing stories of survival and stories of healing that help people continue on and keep going, right?
Right, and you're going to connect with people that only know what you know because they've walked in the same shoes. And we say that all the time, you instantly become family with every one of those people because you share a story that no one will ever believe, but it happens
That's right.
often.
So, walks, all the different walks that we have, and we have a big one coming up.
So every June,
And it's June, by the way.
Right, it is. We do an overnight walk, and that is 16 miles. And this year was its 25th anniversary.
Yes, look at her. Yes.
And it was going to be in New York City. And
Yes, and we were going, and we were going to walk overnight in New York City.
And COVID canceled that. So we're doing it virtually. So June 1st till June 25th, you
That's
can
right.
log in your miles. And you can sign up for the overnight. And if you get a certain amount of donations, you get a cool t-shirt like this.
Yes, you do. And if you want to sign up to do it, great. If you want to just donate,
Right.
I shared up there my fundraising page. I've got
Right.
a goal of 500. Nikki's already gotten her goal, and I have 0 on mine, so I've already shared.
Help her out.
Help me out. Anything, $5, $10. But if you want to sign up to walk 16 miles between now and then, that's
Right.
fantastic.
And you
So-
can get donations. Yes.
That's right. You can get donations. We're not going to worry about me having to meet my goal, but we'll get the goal met. But just get involved. And that is, what is that website? Theovernight.org.
Correct.
You put it on link, right?
Sure didn't.
Yes. Oh, you didn't? Okay, we will.
Right. And you don't have to just walk. You can run. You can swim. Whatever you do,
Swim
meditate.
16 miles.
Well, a mile, whatever.
Okay.
Swim a mile, which it's hot. You can
Woo.
bike. You can go to the gym. You can have a conversation with someone for 30
You
minutes.
bet.
You can do self-care for 30 minutes. You can meditate for 30 minutes, and it counts. You just log it in.
That's right.
And then the Nashville Walk
Yes.
is October 10th at Shelby Bottoms Park. Registration's at 7. Walk begins at 8 and it ends at 11, and you can register for that at afsp.org/chapter/Tennessee. We'll put that up there too.
So, news for you all. Nikki doesn't even know this, but, well, she knows this part. Last year, it was our 5-year anniversary at Integrative Family Medicine. So, I chose American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to raise money for all of 10% of everything you all bought that night went to AFSP. We had a silent auction. For those of you all that don't remember, we raised $7,041.
Can't even remember.
I can't remember. It was a huge night for AFSP. We raised a lot of money that night for the walk that night. This year, we are a sponsor again, so we're a silver sponsor. Who knows? We may be a gold sponsor this year. I don't even know if we're having a walk this year.
We'll figure it out in October.
Yeah, but we are going to have an integrative family medicine team this year. So if you all want to sign up under IFM, I mean, we haven't even gotten all this together yet, but we're going to have an IFM team. So you guys can all be on my team, and we will raise money for AFSP, and we will all walk together, just like we did a couple years ago for the Alzheimer's Association. So, but this year we're going to walk for AFSP, and we're going to raise money. So, and the money goes towards, it doesn't just go to
the chapter.
well, it doesn't go to us at all. We're all volunteer, but it goes to the chapter
Right.
for
Right.
programs to get into your
Training.
kids, your
Right.
child's high school, your child's middle school, your child's grade school, to get into your work, to give programs for many programs for free,
Correct. Yeah.
right?
Right. And research. When you
You
donate
bet.
to the overnight, it goes to research, funds research. It funds different events like the walks. It goes to printed materials to send out, guides, booklets, things like that.
Yes,
To all the chapters. So dollars help.
you bet.
It's like any
$5, $10.
Yep. A cup of coffee.
That's right. 39% of those that died by suicide had been in the emergency department the month before for non-suicidal complaints. I found it. There it is. I knew I had it somewhere. 39%. Rates have increased more sharply since 2006. Suicide ranks as the 4th leading cause of death for people aged 35 to 54 and 2nd cause of death for 10 to 34-year-olds. It remains the 10th leading cause of death overall. We talked about that. But it's a different story in other parts of the world, which is interesting. Over roughly the same period, other countries have seen rates fall, including Japan, China, Russia, and most of Western Europe. Death by suicide fell in the 1980s and 90s before rising again at the turn of the century. Well, yeah, that's right. I guess that's right. It's a new, yeah, yeah. What's more, while some countries such as Russia have seen dramatic declines in suicide since the 1990s, their rates are still well above those of the United States. Isn't that something? There's no obvious culprit for an increase in suicides, nor is there a single easy solution that we can import from other nations to turn this trend around. It takes hard work, boots on the ground, one conversation at a time is what it takes. But this is interesting right here. The CDC from 2000 to 2016, the suicide rate for white Americans climbed from 11.29 to 15.7%. For black Americans, it rose from 5.2 to 6.0 over the same period. What's more, suicides have increased more sharply in rural communities, which we talked about, where a loss of farming and manufacturing jobs has led to economic declines over the past quarter century. So in 2017, the highest U.S. age-adjusted suicide rate was among whites at 15.8%, like we said. And the second highest rate was among American Indians and Alaskan Natives, 13.42%.
Right. Yeah.
Much lower and roughly similar rates, though, were found in Black or African Americans at 6.61 and Asian and Pacific Islanders at 6.59. So much lower, though, rates. And so I texted a friend of mine today, and I asked, he's an African American. I said, why are the African American rates so much lower than the white rates, suicide rates? And I said, what is that? Why is that? What's going on? Are we not reporting it? Maybe. He said, his answer to me was one line. He said, well, actually, I'm going to find what he said right here. He said to me in one line, he said, we're used to the hardships, Dani. We're used to the hardships. We're used to making lemonade out of lemons. Maybe so. Maybe that's part of it. You know? I mean, I'm sure there's some serious truth in that right there, especially going on with what's going on right now in the country.
Right.
Right?
Right. And so in our list of resources, we have two pages
Yes.
of mental health resources for Black Americans, because it needs to be said, it's important. So we've listed those along with several other resources. We've got pages of resources here, local and national.
Yes, and they are all listed on here. But we do have, 2 full pages of Black American resources here. I actually have a friend of mine. She's a patient of mine, but she's also a friend. She's an African American female who is the only African American in her. She's studying marriage and family counseling. She's going to be a therapist at Trevecca. She's the only African American in there. And we've had long conversations the last 2 years that she's been in school over why. Why are you the only African American? Because she wants to treat, you know, she wants to be a therapist, and she wants to go back to her community. And she laughed at me and she said, well, I don't know if anybody will be there. Come to see me though. She said, I don't know. She said, we don't go to therapy as a rule. This is what she told me. I'm not making a statement that I don't know anything about. She said to me, we don't go to therapy. We don't go to therapy, and I want to change that in my community. And I don't know why that is. I mean, she didn't get into details of that, but you know, I'm so proud of her because she wants to go back to her community, and she wants to teach them about mental health and about reaching out. Yeah, the only one.
Amazing.
I know. One more thing here. Based on the 2017 Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and we're getting back into teens again, 7.4% of youth in grades 9 through 12 reported that they had made at least one suicide attempt in the past 12 months. 7.4% of these kids from 9 to 12 had attempted suicide in the last 12 months. Female students attempted almost twice as often as male students, 9.3% of the time versus 5.1%. Black students reported the highest rate of attempt, though, at 9.8%, with white students at 6.1%. Approximately 2.4% of all students reported making a suicide attempt that required treatment by a doctor or a nurse. For those requiring treatment, rates were the highest for the black students at 3.4%. That's disturbing. That's 2017. That's 3 years ago.
Right.
I would think it's higher right now.
Different. Yeah.
You bet.
Are there questions that you want to answer?
Are there any questions, guys? We've got the bridge. I know of someone that jumped off that bridge many years ago. Praise God, they're finally adding a barrier. That's right, Renee. That's right. Such an important topic. Thanks for speaking out on this, Donna Miller. Thank you. What's the number again to call if someone is struggling with thoughts of suicide?
1-800-273-8255. And that's not just for the person struggling, that's for the person that's with the person struggling. So you know how to help.
The statistics break my heart. I know of many people over the last 6 to 8 years that passed from suicide, adults and high schoolers. It hurts my heart. It does mine too, Renee. It does mine as well. But I'm telling you, one person at a time, one conversation at a time, one real conversation at a time, and we can lower this. By 2020, the goal of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is to lower suicide rates by 20%. That's a huge goal. Currently, it's not going down.
No.
But right here we have a hashtag. Here's a bumper sticker I brought back from
Where is it?
California.
There we
I mean
go.
from Colorado. Hashtag Stop Suicide. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Middle Tennessee chapter has got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and it's under
AFSPTN.
AFSPTN, because when you type in AFSP, there's going to every chapter in the country is going to pop up. So just you all changed it to just TN, right?
Yes.
And it's much easier. But I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there's help for you. If you're in a crisis, you reach out today. There's no shame in reaching out. It's the hardest thing. It's the strongest thing you'll ever do, is to reach out. And if you know someone who's struggling, you must ask the hard questions, and you must be uncomfortable. But it really doesn't matter if we're uncomfortable. They're suffering, and our job is to stand up and lift up and reach out to them. That is our job as a human being,
Right.
no matter how uncomfortable it is.
Yep. You can find me on Facebook or wherever. If we're friends, you can always reach out.
Absolutely. So we love you guys. We appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. Share this with your people. Share this with your tribe. It'll be up on Instagram. It'll be up on YouTube tomorrow. If you missed it live, you can go over to YouTube at Dani Williamson Wellness and watch it there. Next week, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about on Sunday night service. I'm thinking it's going to be anxiety, because I'm seeing a lot more patients with anxiety right now. Last week it was adrenals and helping heal your adrenals during this time. This week it is suicide prevention. I think next week it'll be anxiety, probably anxiety/depression, and what we need to do. And, we appreciate you guys. You can always call my office as well. You can reach out, but, reach out to someone. And if you can't get help, you can reach out to either one of us for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we'd love to see you at the walk. We'd love to see you logged on and logging your miles. If you're going to be walking anyway, everybody's walking. You might as well sign up, right? And log your miles. But we appreciate you. Thank you. Nikki, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
No, we appreciate it. All right, guys. It's a hard topic, but it's not impossible, right? And together we can help lower this. We can flatten this curve too.
Right.
Right?
Right. Good night.
Good night.